What up, y'all? It is Jamba here with another video. And look, man, I am Jenner's one of his biggest fans. Now, I'm not part of his demographics. He likes to target conservative white Christian males. But I like his content, man. So I was actually gonna not respond because I responded to his last video. I'm gonna do this one react, if you will. Damn, I'm hungry. I gotta get my protein shake. I did work out earlier today. It's my day off, so I'm gonna be putting out some videos for y'all today, man. I might do a record in maybe about five. Who knows? We'll see. I do got some stuff I gotta do. Okay. So this is kind of similar to his last video. He did a video called what was the video I touched on? Why men are not approaching, and this is why men are refusing today, which is, I guess, in the same ballpark. Uh, yeah. So let's. I am so hungry. I would love to pause this video and just get a ham sandwich or something. Let's continue on, or let's start the video, and then I can go eat.
I took a girl out for ice cream
Oh wait, no. Where's the volume?
tonight. I went on a date. It was a pretty good time, I'd say.
Wait, hold on.
I took a girl out for ice cream tonight. I went on a date. It was a pretty good time, I'd say, but it just kind of reminded me of kind of the current dating dynamic situation that we're in America.
Yeah. So this guy, yeah, he went on a date. Man, it's been a it's been a while since I've been on a date. So congrats on this guy for being able to still do his thing out here. Let's. I, I was gonna make a comment in that because I don't want to just use and just project my shit onto most men, but I at one point was going on not a lot of dates because I was never that guy, but I was going on quite a bit of dates with women, and that was a thing that I did prioritize along with working and my career and stuff like that because I was never that guy in college. So I did take pride in meeting new women, and it wasn't even just about the physical necessarily, but it was just more so about like having those like experiences, like going, whether it's going to a movie or going bowling or an arcade. I like to do arcade, and but man, um it's been mostly diminishing returns, at least in the past few years or so. I've kind of, me personally, have grown tired and worn the fuck out from that whole thing, and it's and on top of it, just kind of getting harder. But yeah, if you're still in it, if you're a man and you're still out there trying to date, if you even able to, whether you're meeting women on Hinge or an app or in person or whatever, then man, good on you. But because I don't, at least in this point in my time, in my life, I just don't necessarily have the stomach for it.
As young guys and kind of the late stage consequences of like feminism. For the last 50 years in America, pretty much all the girls in public education and higher education specifically, they've been brainwashed to think that like men are almost against them, and they kind of have this instant like urge to be against men, I think, because I was talking to this girl, getting to know her. We were chilling at my house right downstairs, and she was telling me about how she does like gardening and how she does art, like she works in pottery. And I was just kind of sitting there like listening, like asking her questions about it, and I was like, that's really like, that's an attractive quality, it's very feminine. And she like immediately got kind of aggressive, like
Ah, yeah, you said the F word and not the other F word or the other F word. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I try when I try to kind of avoid these men women dynamic. I try to avoid those conversations when I'm, if I am talking to a woman and like in that romantic way. I try to avoid those conversations like total. I try to avoid you words like feminine, masculine. Like because there's a way in which you can exhibit those traits as a man without having to like kind of comment on it. So yeah.
she was really sweet and like having a great time before that. And then
And she probably on a dime triggered.
she was like, well, what do you mean like feminine? Like guys can do any of that stuff too. And I was like, yeah, like, but you know, my mom, like she really likes gardening. She also does like artwork and stuff. Like I feel like that's more of a feminine trait. And she just started arguing with me about it. She was like, how, like,
Yeah, you fell down the fucking rabbit hole. Yeah. Just say that you found you admire it. Just say that you like it. You don't have to fucking say that, oh, I love just how feminine your energy and I love the and how submissive. No, you know, you ain't gotta do all that. Because now you're commenting on the thing as opposed to just living the thing or just you just don't need to do all that.
explain to me how like that's feminine, like all this stuff. And then she was like, I don't want you to think that like I do this because like I'm trying to attract guys. Like I do it
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
because I like it. I'm not trying to be like,
Ladies, when we're talking to y'all, now I'm not gonna. I don't want to use the word fucking game because I hate that word. I've game is basically just the force for niggas. Um, when we're talking to y'all, ladies, sometimes for some men, I use two comparisons when we're talking to a woman and we're trying to kind of move things forward. And for some guys, yes, it is to move things towards something sexual, and but it could be just to move things in regards to like progressing in a relationship, progressing in our feelings for each other, progressing towards a relationship or something more, right? Often when we're talking to y'all, especially through text, right? But this was in person, but it can happen in person too, right? Like how we're dealing with y'all. I'm gonna use these two analogies. The first analogy is that it's kind of like this is more so through texting, but it's kind of like we're trying to disarm a bomb and we're texting y'all to and I'm not and a lot of guys text this way where we're texting y'all and trying to come up with the exact right punctuation and exact wording and the use the words in exact order to get our point across, whether we're trying to flirt or we're trying to communicate information. Timing is a thing. So if you text us back at 9:30, we can't text you back at 9:31. We got to text you back at maybe 9:47, maybe depending upon the last time you text us. Like we have to do all of these fucking 3D chess mathematics to kind of text y'all. And because sometimes you can say a joke, you can say a phrase, you can say something, and a lot of y'all have a very, very short fuse, if you will, to go to the Obama analogy. And because you weren't really interested in the guy in the first place, it it goes off, meaning that you might lose interest, you might find something offensive, he might mention something about sex, you don't like that, you block him. Like, ladies, just look at your block list. So guys, can sometimes feel like you're walking on eggshells, unfortunately. I try not to feel that way personally, but it just sort of depends. And the other analogy in this case is kind of like what's that board game, Operation, right? So it's kind of like in Operation, what is it, you gotta try to get the little thing out of the body, and if you touch the sides, so when this guy said feminine, that was a trigger word, so these are the things that when we're talking to women, and I love women. I have female friends, and I hang out with my my cousins and nieces and stuff like this, and and all that. But these are the things, right? And I don't have to filter my language when I'm talking to my friends necessarily or my family. But when you're talking to a woman romantically, yeah, you as a man, you're gonna have to watch out for those things, right? Those pitfalls or traps, if you will. And then this guy fell into a trap, but he's a good-looking white guy, so he should it shouldn't be that big of a deal.
feminine. And it just made me
Let's
realize like, all
rewind.
this stuff. And then she was like, I don't want you to think that like I do this because like I'm trying to attract guys. Like I do it because I like it. I'm not trying to be like feminine. And it just made me realize this girl thinks I'm trying to like insult her by saying that those things are feminine. And I was like, trying to explain to her, like, that's a compliment. Like, I'm trying to say, that's a feminine quality and it's attractive to me. I want a feminine woman. I think girls that do artwork and work with their hands and do stuff with plants and stuff like that's attractive to me. And I eventually just kind of like ended up laughing it off. I was like, okay, like whatever, like that's a cool hobby. She was asking me about my hobbies, and I was telling her I like weightlifting, I like playing music, stuff like that. And she was like, oh, like those are very masculine, like trying to mess with me a little bit. And I was like, yeah, like those are like naturally a little bit more masculine than doing pottery and gardening. Like weightlifting is more masculine than working with pottery and making art. But it seems like these girls are just kind of like brainwashed to be against us. I'd say a lot of guys that have the access to date, which is not a huge percent of guys, like a lot of
That was a. I'm sorry, that was a funny meme. I'm not sure why they used the guy from Jimmy Neutron, but this is kind of funny. I don't laugh at memes much. That was, I'm not gonna lie, that was pretty funny.
to date, which is not a huge percent of guys. Like a lot of guys don't really have the access to this stuff. The dating dynamics are completely skewed in America for young guys. Pew Research put
Yeah, if you're going on a date, I mean, you pretty much, that's kind of a big deal in a sense, because there's guys who can get numbers but can't get the date, or guys that can get the conversation going but can't get the woman to actually want to meet in person. So the fact that he was able to kind of get to a point where she's on a date with him, I mean, that's a pretty big deal to a certain I think today, right? Before it wasn't, but now I definitely think it is. And I think that if I were to say why a lot of guys are refusing to date, I think that a lot of guys are refusing to date mainly because they can't. It's kind of like this, right? So you have like two classes of men, and I promise people I'm gonna let this damn video play. But you got two classes of men: the guys who can date and the guys who can't date. The guys who can't date, they can't date. So regardless of if they say I'm refusing to date these women, it's like, motherfucker, no, they didn't want to date you in the first place. So already, and this is about like 80, 85% of guys or whatever, these guys are already just fucking off the table, right? So we can't, if you didn't get the invite or the offer to go to Harvard, then you can't be like, well, I don't want to go to Harvard anyway. They didn't want you, right? So most guys are refusing to date because they can't do it. So let's move those guys over there. Now, the guys who can date, especially if you're like super desirable, the point of the matter is that they don't have to date to get what they want. So like if those guys are in a position where the women want to date them, then they just don't have one woman who wants to date them or two women. They have like dozens of women off, like the guys who actually are attractive and like desirable are like super desirable, and they have like a lot to, whether they're on the app or whatever, to pick from. So these guys don't feel like it's often, especially these guys just want sex. They don't have to go on a date to get what they want. They could just get it delivered to them like Postmates, right? And then let's say out of these guys who can date, the guys who do want relationships, they will often find one and get into a relationship. And then you have another contingent of men who sure, they can get sex whenever they want to, but they don't feel like, maybe they do want a relationship, but they don't feel like that it's worth it, for whatever reason, right? Maybe they got a lot to lose. Maybe they've had bad experiences. Maybe, and a lot of these guys who are in this camp of super desirable men, these are men who've had married women hit on them. These are men who slept with married women. These are men who slept with taken women, right? So some of these guys, oh, I want more water. So some of these guys kind of can feel disillusioned, and so in many, because of a variety of reasons, right? So, but yeah, that's my assessment if you wanted to know. But let's see what this guy says.
put out a study recently that it's like 63% of young guys are single, and it's only like 38% of women, maybe 34% of women, because girls are dating older guys. Girls are more likely to say they're in a relationship when it's just like a situationship, and a lot of girls are kind of sharing guys.
Yeah, situationships will take a lot of women off the market. a lot because yeah, they'll be in a situationship for a while.
Guys, like the top kind of Chad like guys, but even guys like me that kind of have decent success with women, a lot of these dudes are just kind of refusing to date the girls that are naturally so against them and like have embraced the feminist ideology of just trying to maximize their leverage in the relationship and kind of seeing men as like the opposition. Like these girls go through public school, they go to college, a lot of them go into higher education in much higher rates than men, and they're just kind of taught all along the way like men have been holding you back, being a
Yeah, I did have a conversation with a young woman who I used to. We went on like a couple of dates, and we were having that whole like. I'm not going to get into the specifics, but we were having that whole male privilege in a workplace kind of conversation, and I was basically one of the things that I was saying was that is that a woman, a young woman, actually has more social capital in the workplace more so than a single man. And that's one reason why they kind of have a leg up in a certain way because us people aren't threatened by a single woman, but they are threatened by a single man, in a way, right? Depending upon the context. And she was bringing up, like pregnancy, like she was bringing up like her kind of points, which are kind of lean more towards like women being disenfranchised and women have because of pregnancy, and you look at the men at the top of the pyramid, the CEOs and shit. And I was saying, and I'm like, well, you can definitely look at the men at the top and say, like, hey, there's more, male CEOs and billionaire and all this other stuff. But I'm like, hey, let's look at the bottom. Just don't look at the top. We have to broaden and take a step back and look at who are the men who are more likely to be homeless, the men who are more likely to be, drug addicts and be dropouts and to commit suicide and all that. So it was actually a relatively more productive gender war type conversations. But like I said, this is not a conversation that I suggest you have with anybody that you are romantically involved with at all.
mother is pointless and a waste of time, having a family is a waste of time, being a good wife's a waste of time. Go have degenerate sex, go embrace a career in banking or some sort of STEM, and that's going to be your way to find a happy life. And it's so backwards because it's not the nature of women. It's not the nature of how we're actually made by God. Women thrive in roles that are feminine as a caretaker, like taking care of children, taking care of their husband, taking
If they don't like kids, man, then you can't force them to be. Look, man, don't work with kids. Don't do none of that shit if that's not what you're inclined to do, man. Um, sure, I can say that. Yeah, I mean, a woman might have a higher proclivity to work with children and to do these feminine tasks, but I also see more and more of young women not necessarily even liking kids or having that motherly kind of instinct, bro. So just I think things are, as Bob Dylan once said, things are a changing, and I think that men and women, you're seeing more men exhibit more feminine traits and females more masculine traits. So I am so hungry.
care of plants, taking care of their mental health, like doing stuff that's actually peaceful, yoga, art, stuff like that. It's feminine, it's good for women. And men thrive through challenge, like through working together towards a goal. Men are always going to be doing better, like mentally, when they're kind of striving towards something, when they have this end goal in mind. Sam Hyde talks a lot about this, how like the best cure for depression is just having like a North Star that you're working towards. As a guy, like if you have a project, a big goal in mind, it's a lot easier to fend off the demons in your life. Now, women
That I can agree with is that you always got to have something as a man that you're working towards, goals, whether it's your business, your passion, your career, a project, even something like I have my projector over there, and even though it was just a projector, it's not like a car, but it was nice to try to figure out, like, because my projector wasn't it was working, but I was trying to figure out the sound. And I remember, like, buying this thing and trying to like figure and troubleshoot, and I can only imagine, having to troubleshoot something like a car, like, or something like a bigger project. And it was really fun and satisfying to do once, the shit was working the way it was supposed to, right? So so he's absolutely correct on this. I mean, yes, as a man, you're probably still gonna have things in your life that hit you. You might run across depression or what have you, but working out, having goals, having a plan, waking up, tackling those goals, even if you fail, you're much better off as opposed to not having a plan at all, or not having a purpose, or not having a passion or something that really drives you, right? A competition, I also think is key. That's something I want to get back into myself. So yeah, I mean, these are things and I think these are good for people, not necessarily just men, but I think that for especially men, I think these things are imperative.
Women are not naturally as much like this. In the book, The Way of the Superior Man, it talks about how women really value love and relationships and connection in their life. And when you start stripping those things away, the woman kind of falls apart. Like her mental health goes to shit. She starts questioning what's her purpose. And a lot of times it kind of leads down the rabbit hole of chasing all the wrong things. And for men, when you take away the drive towards goals, when you take away the masculine urge to
I'm gonna get myself a protein shake. So I'm gonna pause this and I'm gonna be right back. You're not even gonna tell because of editing, the power of editing. And I got my protein shake, so we're good to go. We're good to go. And there's a helicopter outside. Hope it's not too loud. Okay, where we at? Where we at?
conquer and to work towards like a bigger, higher purpose in your life. When that's stripped away and you leave men kind of believing like nihilism, stuff like that, men crumble and men turn to alcohol and violence and drugs and all this stuff. And I think that a lot of men have also been affected by brainwashing by society. Like a lot of guys are walking away from religion, they're walking away from embracing the challenges of life, a lot of times because
American Fiction has been nominated for 5 Academy Awards. Oh, Hollywood! Including Best Picture.
the game has kind of been skewed against young guys, like having a job, trying to own assets, stuff like that. Like a realistic goal for a lot of our dads and stuff is now unrealistic to a point where it's not even a North Star. It's just like unrealistic to a point where a lot of guys don't even see the point of trying. And then girls have been brainwashed to a point where they're told like they should not try to embrace their feminine nature. They shouldn't become mothers. They should not settle down with one guy in a monogamous relationship.
Um, Good video so far. I'm not. He hasn't really answered the question of the title. Maybe he's gonna get to it. We're not halfway there yet. So I do have to charge my laptop, so I'm probably gonna have to do another crappy little edit. I'm at 9%, y'all. Shit. But let's continue until I get to about 8%. I need a new laptop. All right.
They shouldn't embrace feminine hobbies and taking care of their mental health and doing the things in life that are more feminine in nature, being caretakers and slowing things down in life and investing in relationships and love. That's why we see all these older women who have kind of gone down like the corporate pipeline. They work really hard at their careers and they find themselves single, unmarried in their late 30s, early 40s, and the only thing they really have to show for it is like some cash and maybe a few assets they've inherited or worked to be able to afford. But yeah, they're not happy. Like none of us are happy because the natural kind of way that we're built by God has been stripped away by a secular nihilist society that only kind of praises money and capital. And I'm not trying to throw this girl under the bus. She really was like a really sweet girl. We had a fine date, but that moment, like, it just kind of flipped a switch in me because I've realized all these girls are kind of programmed to think that their feminine side is bad and evil. And a guy like pointing out like, oh, that's a feminine quality, that's like an insult to them. What it reminds me of is like Sponge.
I think you just kind of you weren't playing the game properly in regards. It's kind of like if I'm a dude and I'm walking with a woman and I walk on the opposite side of on the outer side of the sidewalk and she's in the inner side. You don't say, I am now going to walk on this side of the sidewalk to illustrate that I am the masculine man and I am protecting you from the traffic. Like I don't when you pay the bill, you don't say, "Well, I am now exhibiting my masculine trait by paying the bill," while you like. And I'm not saying that he was. I'm exaggerating, But my point is just that, what's understood does not have to be said. And sometimes when you say a thing, it's like just allow the things to kind of be what they are, and you just do not. And that's one thing I've learned. It's just some shit you just don't have to fucking comment on, right? Oh man, okay, my battery is just losing juice.
SpongeBob when like everybody has those hats on in SpongeBob the movie, and then Plankton like hits that button and they all go down. Like that's what it was like. We were sitting on the couch, and as soon as I pointed out that like yeah, those are some feminine attractive qualities, that Plankton thing went down. She was like, "That's not feminine. Like guys could do that stuff. I could do that. All this stuff." And it just like made me realize it's not even her talking at that point. It's just the brainwashing coming right out of them. And I think a lot of guys are starting to realize that the risk reward for dating for them, it's no longer.
Okay, now he's finally getting to the reason. So this will be a good time for me to pause. I'm gonna charge my laptop. Again, the power of editing, people. You're not even gonna tell.